Okay, so we've just had the go-to meeting. Unfortunately, it did not record correctly, and a few attendees couldn't make the meeting. So I'm just going to go through the demonstration again now for everyone. So the TPAR application lives in the left-hand side of the ACPAC window here, just over here. And the first thing you're going to need to do is just enter the activation code that we've sent you. To get to that area, you just go into Setup and then Options, and you just enter your activation code here. For us to generate this code for you, you'll need to first go up to Help, About Sage 300, and this is the information we're going to need from you to be able to activate your product. Okay, to actually launch the TPAR application, you just need to go into TPAR here and then double click on the TPAR program here. Now the first thing you see is your company's details will be populated in these fields here. So this has your address information, your contact information, etc. Your ABN, if it's entered correctly, should display here. I haven't entered that against this test data, as you can see, but if there's any problems with any of this data here, if you're missing anything, you can just go into Common Services and just fill that in for your company. You'll notice here on the left-hand side we have an extra section for the branch number and contact email. That's because the contact email was something we'd want to maybe quickly change depending on who was generating the report, as your contact email is the person they contacted if there's anything wrong with the data, so you might want to change that depending on when the report is run. And this is your bank's branch number. We also felt a need to be able to quickly change that information and access that quickly. So once that's entered, you can actually just hit Save Settings, and that will save every time you open up the company that you're running that against. Also, I should mention that for this information, it is per company. So if you want to report multiple reports against different companies, you just have to open the company in ACPAC and open up the application, and you'll have the different companies' information there. So that way you can actually create multiple reports for multiple companies within the one installation. Okay, to begin, the first thing you're going to need to do is choose your financial year from the drop-down box here. That's the financial year that you want to report for, and then you want to click Validate Vendors for that financial year. So that'll actually go through and it will look at each individual vendor and ensure that all of their required information is there for you. So if something is missing for one of your vendors, it'll actually appear in the right-hand side here and tell you what's wrong. For example, this one had an invalid BSB entered. But you can either at this stage go back into ACPAC and fix up the vendor's data, or you can actually just leave that data there, and then when you get to this spreadsheet stage, you can change the data just on the spreadsheet straight away, because it's actually a lot easier to edit a spreadsheet than it is to click through individual vendors. So that's probably the best way to do it. So once you've validated your vendors as listed, then you should then be able to click this Export to New Spreadsheet button, as I've just done, and that will bring up this new spreadsheet window. So as you can see in here, you have all of your vendor name, their ABN, and stuff. This is just test data, obviously, so it's all the same, but your individual vendors will have all their individual information displayed here. And the important thing, if there is any validation errors that you haven't fixed against the vendor, you can actually just change them in here, and that, whatever the problem is, will actually be highlighted. So for example, this address here has been entered but they haven't included the state, so you can actually just fix that up and then the highlight will go away. It'll also, for any validation rule that the ATO requires to be a valid ATO report, if anything is entered wrong, for example, if you just put random characters into this state here, you'll get a window and it will tell you the valid options or what you've done wrong. So for example here, for state, I've entered not one of the options here that's allowed for a state, which is basically all the Australian states, and then other for if it's an overseas address. So you can just go ahead and fix that up. So these first fields that you see here is all contact information. You might notice that it's got first name, second name and surname. This is only required for individuals. It's not required for businesses. Whether or not the vendor that you're looking at is a business or an individual is determined by this business or individual column here. As you can see, if I change this from a business to an individual, and then if I go back and I look at this, the name details, it will actually show me validation errors because that was actually definitely required for an individual. So you can either enter valid data there, or you can obviously, if it's not for an individual, just change it back to business. But yeah, that's how that's performed. So it gets the first name, second name, and surname of an individual from the optional fields saved against the vendor. And as I was asked in the meeting, if the vendor is not a business, you do not have to give them, you do not have to fill these in. It's only required for individuals. So yeah, this is all basically contact information, and then the most important part here is your totals. As you can see them over here. Tax withheld, that's only for people with the optional field set to tax withholding. Yeah, so you basically want to go through and make sure all of these all the data for these vendors are as you'd expect them, and fix up any validation rules. I should also note at this point, for people who have grants and who need to enter grant information, you'll see that all of these particular payments, or particular vendors, are just regular P, but if you have a grant, you'd put this as a G. And this means that this is expecting this to be a grant vendor. So in that case, you need to put in the date of the grant and the name of the grant, and that's where you'd enter that information there. But because again, this isn't for a grant, I don't have to put that in. But yeah, that's where you need to do that if you need to do that. So you go through, make sure there's no more errors to highlight. I won't actually fix this up in here because I've got one I've prepared earlier, but once you're happy with all that data, again, it does tell you what you've done wrong. If you try to enter in something that you're not allowed to, it will give you an error and tell you what's wrong with it. You go through and you just hit save. And here you can save the spreadsheet, whether you want to reopen this later and continue working on it, or send that off to the final stage. But yeah, so you fix all your validation errors, or as many as you can, and then just hit save, and you can save your worksheet, and then hit close. Now the next stage is to actually select the spreadsheet that you want to turn into the ATO report, and then click Create ATO Report. I should mention at this stage that you don't have to do this all in one go, which is the good thing, because I understand there could be a lot of validation problems that you need to fix. You can just close the application and then just go back in to see Open Existing Spreadsheet. Just choose one that you've been working on, so this one for example, and then just continue where you left off, continuing to fix up your validation problems or fix whatever you need to do there, and then just hit save when you're complete. So if once you're happy with the data in the spreadsheet, that is all the information you want to send off to the ATO and everything's valid, you just hit select report spreadsheet, choose the spreadsheet, and then you just click this Create ATO Report button here. So I'll actually go through now, go into that data and just make sure everything's correct and generate that report for you. Once it's done, it gives you this save window here. You can just save that file wherever you want as whatever name you want to give it. I've just given it a default name of ATO report.test, but that doesn't matter. So you just go ahead and save that wherever you want. Now that report is then ready to send off to the ATO on their portal. So we'll need to provide you with a link that you go there. For this testing stage though, you want to make sure that the file works okay and everything's valid in it, as you expect. So you can actually send that to me and I'll run that through the test. They have a test portal set up which you can then upload. Well, I'll upload it for you, and they'll give us feedback as to anything you've entered incorrectly. So if you want to do that first to make sure the report's going to be okay, you just feel free to send it to me and I'll upload it for you and give you feedback as to anything that needs to be fixed. But Apart from that, that file is basically all you need to send to the ATO. Yeah, that's it at this stage. So if you have any questions or inquiries, just send me an email and I'll get back to you. Thanks.